Hi, Rich Hoffman here. The wildfires in California, in exclusive Hollywood communities, and Hollywood being on fire in general. My statement, I think, is consistent, maybe more so than Mel Gibson's when he was on Laura Ingram's show and talked about, they discussed how the fire started, and it's Mel Gibson's belief, as is mine, that the fires were purposely started, and that there's likely political motivations behind the fire starting. The conditions were opportune to with the wind direction and the various conditions to start fires. They did catch an arsonist. He was running around trying to catch Christmas trees that had been tossed out from the holiday on fire, and it didn't take much to start fires under those conditions with the high winds being what they are. So why would anybody want to do it? And I think Mel Gibson alluded to the fact that, maybe some people, maybe some insurance companies want out, or maybe there's some land acquisition, or maybe they want to rezone the way they build it. And kind of like what you saw with the Maui fires, or the fires in Hawaii, where the suspicions of it being converted, that community in Hawaii being converted to a 15-minute city prototype, was the motivating goal behind the arson. I don't think you can take anything for granted the way these people operate, and you have to, I think scandal first before you think of any other condition. And that who the perpetrators were that hired the people to go out and create arsons. If you want to know who it is, well, it's the same people who decided not to have any water, so that the whole thing could happen, and they could blame it on incompetence, they could blame it on environmental conditions, they could blame it on budgets. Government didn't fund them enough, there wasn't high enough taxes, all these reasons why there wasn't water in that reservoir. But if you look at the policy decisions behind the terrorist acts, you'll usually find your culprit. So when you see loose policies such as, we're not going to have firefighters, or we're going to allocate money to Ukraine, or we're going to do all these things, and when you see the people who made those decisions, you'll see the same people who are finding ways to find arsonists running around starting fires in Hollywood so they can burn the whole thing down. So I don't know that it's land related the way Mel Gibson alluded to. Now, Mel Gibson lost his house. He has a personal, he's been personally impacted by this thing, as a lot of celebrities in Hollywood, in that particular community, Hollywood Hills and around there, found their homes destroyed and everything gone. It just lets you know what a lack of permanence you really have, especially when you live in a community as tightly knit or close together as those are. And when you get heavy winds and roaring fire, it doesn't take long to burn everything down. And people learned a hard lesson. And I think typically people don't think of Hollywood being prone to that kind of thing, but here we're the top stars in the nation of America, in an industry that is known for its ability to have such a luxury environment in the economy, where you can make movies and have an entertainment culture the way that they do in Hollywood. There's a lot going on in these Hollywood fires. And that the Hollywood sign in Hollywood Hills would actually be on fire seems a remarkable catastrophe. But I look at it as an act of terrorism. It was not naturally created, I don't think. There's any proof that shows that these things started because of some lightning strike or some power lines that fell across a grassy area and started fires. And that's why you have to have solar and wind power, because there's infrastructure of current power grid is so dangerous. I don't think any of those are the thing. None of those things are the reasons why there was a fire. They caught one guy and they let him go because they couldn't prove that he started the fires. It would seem like it would be kind of a problem if you're out there trying to burn Christmas trees with a flamethrower in an area where it's prone to catch fires, and then you happen to have all these roaring fires destroying billions and billions of dollars. That would be a problem. This goes back to what I said about incompetency actually written into this government as part of your terrorist act to destroy first world policies and bring the third world to a first world response to these kinds of crises. A fire like that should have been contained quickly, maybe one or two houses, maybe before it ever hit a house. Shouldn't even been a problem. And the reservoir and the water supply, the fire hydrants, all that should have been there. Having a full-time fire department to put out the fires. That's the way you deal in a first world civilization with those kinds of catastrophes. That's why you're able to have a rich community to begin with. So the incompetence is actually part of the plan. And when you have the people who have decided not to have water in the reservoir, you have all these progressive policies that you can use to extort over people. And then you can blame it because you have this administrative state culture that never takes responsibility for anything. That makes it prone for a terrorist attack. It goes back to like 9/11 or the Oklahoma City bombing, and people who orchestrate those things in the background know the conditions for which they're trying to set the terror. But why would they do it? And this is where I disagree with Mel Gibson a little bit. I don't know that they're trying to burn out the land so they acquire land at a cheaper rate or get out of insurance policies, where there's all kinds of reasons why you want to have a change of use in zoning, or whatever the condition is that would cause a terrorist act to begin with. I think my first reaction to the fires was, well, that's where the pedophilia cult members would be. All these members of the P. Daddy arrest and the investigation and all the raids that are going to occur as a result of people who attended parties at P. Daddy's residence and got involved in these child molestation cases, the sex calls to drugs. With the incoming Trump administration, there are a lot of scared people who are trying to tie up loose ends that don't come back to them. And the best place to wrap it up is that particular region, from Malibu up to Hollywood Hills, all the way down to Burbank. A lot of people attended those P. Daddy parties and are going to be wrapped up and come in as witnesses, and there's going to be raids where a lot of evidence in those homes, whether it's videotape or whether it's memorabilia, whatever it might be, would be easy to acquire as evidence. And the best way to get rid of it is to burn it all out and destroy the evidence. You see that's usually the case with a lot of arsons, is the arsonists are trying to destroy evidence, not preserve it. And would people be willing, who are wrapped up in this thing, because this is a big case. This isn't small stuff. It's going to turn out to be, I think, massive in the scheme of things. Would people be willing to commit that kind of evil? You bet they would. Would they harm thousands of other people who are totally innocent in those neighborhoods? Burn them all out just to hide the crime of the handful of people that are really wrapped up in the P. Daddy scandal? And I say yes. I think when you talk about, and you know this from the Jack Parsons deal back in the L. Ron Hubbard days, and Aleister Crowley, when you had all these Hollywood people that were wrapped up in that cult. That was part of Aleister Crowley. Again, Jack Parsons, founder of NASA. They and L. Ron Hubbard, everybody knows him, and Scientology. They had a lot of crazy occult-driven diatribes that went on, and it's in the music industry to this day. And a lot of actors and actresses looking for jobs, cozy up to producers who believe in these old Mesopotamian gods and these worshiping of those rival deities. They get involved in bad stuff, and they get wrapped up in this child sex. They'll do anything for a role. And when you go to these parties, and that's the kind of the thing they do, and it's mutually accepted, and they partake, and there's evidence of it. There's memorabilia from the parties, and they take them back to their homes. It's all over that area because it's part of the culture. So the first thing I thought of when I saw those roaring fires, that wasn't climate change. That's arson, and it's terrorism. It's the same kind of terrorism we saw in New Orleans, same kind of terrorism we saw with Las Vegas, same kind of concern you get before a new DOJ is coming into place under Donald Trump that's going to be looking to clean up a lot of this stuff. And then you got P. Daddy going from the Biden administration over to a Trump administration that is clearly going to have a lot less tolerance for malcontents. And the way to destroy evidence is to burn it. And burn it in entire neighborhoods so you can't trace anything back because the catastrophe is so big that you hide the original crime. And that's what I think is going on. I think just like Mel Gibson does, I think it was arson. I think it was purposeful. It's an act that should be considered an act of terrorism. And the policymakers who emptied the reserves and didn't have water ready to go and are blaming it on budgets are the people who actually are the perpetrators. And whatever terrorists knew those policies and knew there wasn't going to be an ability to put the fires out, and when they were running around the neighborhood with flamethrowers, burning up old Christmas trees from Christmas, they knew very well the winds were coming from that way. What happens in that area when you have wildfires, they knew what they were doing. I knew, I had a good friend actually that had some ideas, is a very, very smart person, and he didn't like society too much. This is years ago. Didn't like society very much, and he wanted to start an ice age to destroy humanity. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to blow up some dams that would ingest a whole bunch of water, fresh water, into the St. Lawrence Seaway that would affect the Gulf Stream and then cause massive freezing of the Arctic ice. And that sounded pretty crazy to me, and I thought, and I think we were at a Perkins eating a hamburger, and he told me this story, and I'm like, well, why would you want to do that though? Because people suck, and I just want to get rid of them. They just don't deserve. Let's put humanity back into an ice age, and that's how you can do it. Okay, throwing a lot of fresh water into the St. Lawrence Seaway to oversaturate the Gulf Stream so that you would have Arctic freezing is a pretty neat idea. That's interesting, but I don't think it's going to work in the time frame you think. He's like, you're probably right. Okay, let's get another hamburger. And that's the end of the conversation. But it was on his mind, and being the kind of genius that he was, evil or good, malcontent, disgruntled, whatever it is, that's a conversation that I never forgot. And you know what? There are people out there who are that evil, are that bad, and will seriously go to take the next steps and actually do it. And if he was thinking about it, there's hundreds of thousands of other people who are very smart out there or very diabolical. And they look around, they see the conditions, they know the progressive playbook says do this, do that. And we've got a crime case coming up here with Puff Daddy and many other pedophilia cultures that are going to come under scrutiny of Trump's next administration and his DOJ. And we got to get rid of the evidence. And in this case, you have to burn out entire neighborhoods because there's so many people involved. And the only way to make it not look conspicuous is to burn the whole thing down and let the tragedy overwhelm the effort, so that people are so wrapped up in the tragic circumstances that they don't see what really happened. And that's how these diabolical losers create such a menace in society, and why there's such a detriment to the world we live in. And I think we need to look at this whole wildfire situation in California, Hollywood specifically, not as a natural occurrence driven by climate change, but as an act of terror by progressives trying to hide their crimes, and the kind of people that perpetrated them that were hidden in those communities, that the evidence had to be gotten rid of before Trump hit office. And that's why I think the timing and the nature of it and why it happened, and a lot of people were involved in it, including Gavin Newsom to a large extent, and even Joe Biden, and they're quite well aware that of the conditions lingering in the background, and there's no way they can really hide from it. Even if you burn out entire communities, they're all guilty and they have to pay. Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.